Mr. LaHood.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to thank all of you for your service and your valuable testimony here today. Dr. Wilson, I want to just touch on one point related to China. You mentioned in your opening statement the economic relationship between the U.S. and China. We just stood up the new Select Committee on China. I'm proud to be selected as a part of that along with Mr. Gallagher and Mr. Krishnamurthy, and it provides a great opportunity for us to highlight the malign activities of the CCP, but also come up with economic solutions and proposals. One of the biggest issues with China is the U.S. companies that are embedded in China. You know, I think about the BRT, the Business Roundtable, and the Chamber of Commerce, and, you know, go down the list of the iconic American companies that have been in China for 40 years. But many of them make excuses for the CCP every single day. They justify their relationship there. And as we look at how do we deal with that relationship between these companies and businesses that continue to make concessions for the CCP, whether it's when, we talk about the autonomy of Taiwan or the democracy in Taiwan. Well, don't talk about that. They don't want to have a conversation about that. We talk about Xinjiang and the violations there in the forced labor camps. Again, that's not something they want to deal with. And it's the double standard, really, of, you look at the violation of religious liberties, privacy rights, the surveillance state that China is, but many of these companies turn a blind eye to that. So as we look at the Select Committee on China and how we deal with the economic relationship, this is not what Russia was 40 years ago because of the economic relationship. I'm wondering if you have suggestions on that.
It's actually a good set of questions. One of the questions when China began to develop as an economic power was whether it could develop economically and still remain repressive politically. And I think there was tremendous hope, and we certainly, we all remember when they opened the Summer Olympics and the tremendous hope for possible openness. I hope that this period under Xi passes away, and that China changes its course. But while we are where we are, we have to hold multiple ideas in our heads simultaneously, which is that we have to hold them accountable for their human rights abuses. We have to recognize that they're targeting our companies, stealing intellectual property, have a massive intelligence collection enterprise against both public and private entities in the United States, and that they also are a huge, their economy is now, while not per capita, certainly their economy is now roughly equal to that of the United States of America. So we cannot ignore that fact. We have to continue to pursue our interests in economics as well as national security over time, and that's going to be difficult to do, to navigate that. But in the long term, I think that will be the best for the United States.
I want to switch topics, and either General Breedlove or General Petraeus on Ukraine. We all know that the invasion of Ukraine, was the violation of the sovereignty and was unjustified and illegal. But it seems like China is so fixated on sovereignty for Xinjiang, sovereignty for Taiwan, sovereignty for Hong Kong. And it seems like a complete double standard and hypocrisy that everywhere they talk about sovereignty, but yet when the invasion happens, they talk about their unbreakable bond with Putin, right? And for a year straight, they've stood by Putin in this. And I'm wondering, has that hurt them diplomatically? It doesn't seem to me to do that. But how do we allow them to continue to get away with this argument on sovereignty when it's a blatant double standard?
Well, it's a great question, and it's something that I think needs to be aired more publicly. We don't have a public debate about this, which then engenders people holding them to task. So I think that's an important part of this. And what we, I think, have seen as far as Russia and China is actually China distancing them just a little. They don't want to get too close to what Russia's doing in Ukraine, especially as Russia talks more and more about nukes.
I'd just add that the Partnership Without Limits that was declared on the eve of the opening ceremonies of the Beijing Winter Olympics actually has turned out to have distinct limits, and that the relationship between China and Russia has become even more transactional than it already was. that this has actually put President Xi, I think, in quite an uncomfortable position where China has to abstain from voting. I mean, how can you not criticize Russia for carrying out an invasion of a sovereign country and doing it in such a brutal manner? And they've twice abstained from votes in the UN General Assembly condemning the invasion and then condemning the annexation of parts of Ukraine by the Russian Federation. I think another measure, though, that's worth exploring is how much are we doing in terms of secondary sanctions, because there is some assistance to Russia that I think is violating some of the sanctions. It is helping Russia evade these sanctions that I highlighted as so important earlier, which have brought down the Russian economy, but only by about 3.5% last year, and it may actually grow slightly this year, according to the IMF, maybe 0.5%, which for a country under sanctions should be disappointing to those who are leading the effort to impose those sanctions. So I think exploring what might be done in terms of secondary sanctions to highlight that we are watching and holding to account would be